Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at some Alchemy Aetherdrift decks. Well, one deck in particular today, which is the RAK, Sack and Crack the Ladder deck. So I've been experimenting with Rakdos sacrifice type decks for a little while now. In Alchemy, and they always feel to be missing something a little bit. I've always liked this combination of Alesha and Gilded Ambusher, which I'll talk about in a second, but I do feel like we've finally been given the missing piece in the Coalstoke Gearhulk in order to make this work. So let's just run through what we're playing and why. So we are sort of working around Gilded Ambusher, which is the 3 costing 4/2 Lizard Glimmer. Whenever it attacks, you may sack another non-land permanent. So that could be creatures or otherwise. It can also sack tokens, so including treasures. And when you do, each opponent exiles a non-land, non-token permanent they control and a random non-land card from their library, and then Gilded Ambusher deals damage to them equal to the token mana value cards exiled this way. Blah, blah, blah. So many words on this card. But basically, when we attack, we sack something. If they have just one creature and no other permanents, they have to exile their creature, so they can't block the ambusher, so they need at least a creature plus something else to even be able to block this. Obviously we need things that we are happy to sack. That is where we have 4 of the Chittering Skullspeaker, who is basically a creature that when he comes in draws us cards and loses its life. We have the Impetuous Lootmonger, which itself can heist us something and then is useful in the sense that it creates treasures, but we can sack him or we can sack the treasures that he creates. 3 of the Crude Abattoir, again, we run this last game. If we use this to come in to do 2 damage to a creature, which is, very reasonable, we can always sack that as one of our permanents. Or we have this 1-drop new creature from Aetherdrift, the Gas Guzzler, which we can sack and then get back later with Alesha. So cheap creatures, plenty. We kind of want creatures in our graveyard as well, because we are running Alesha Who Laughs at Fate, so she's the 3-drop human warrior. This was a reprint in Foundations. A little bit weak these days because of the power creep, but hey ho. She's got first strike, and whenever she attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. At the beginning of end step, if you attack this turn, return target creature card with mana value less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So when she attacks turn 1, she'll be a 3/3, so we can bring back anything with mana value 3 or less, which is basically everything except the Gearhulk in our deck. So it's not the end of the world for us to put creatures into the graveyard, because we can get them back with Alesha, so we don't mind sacking them. We're also running 4 of the Polterheist. This is also something that I think was a bit underpowered when it came out. I mean, thankfully, because Heist is a pain in Alchemy. But whenever it attacks, you heist to target opponent's library, and it has Ward 2 life. The reason I think it's almost playable in this deck, and the reason we're trying it out, is that we are running 3 of the new Coalstoke Gearhulk, which is a 5-costing Mythic 5/4 Menace Death Touch construct artifact creature. When this enters, we can put target creature card with mana value 4 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a finality counter on it, i.e. it gets exiled when it dies. Note that is a graveyard, so not just our own, but also our opponent's. That creature gains Menace, Death Touch, and Haste. At the beginning of your next end step, exile that creature. So, because we have the Ambushers, now I always like this card, but it's a bit weak to removal. We can bring those back with the Gearhulk. We can even sack the Gearhulk itself if we need to, because this thing will have haste when it attacks. So we can sack the Gearhulk to force our opponent to sack X something. Against like ramp decks, this thing's broken because it's doing them damage based on the mana value or something exiled from them and from their library. So that can be like 15 damage. If it's against something with really high mana value stuff in their deck. So it can be worth sacking the Gearhulk. We can sack something else with it. We can also bring back the Polterheist. That's kind of what I'm saying here, because then it gives us a free heist on their library, which can get us out of trouble. Or bring back Alesha. She can attack, and then Alesha herself can bring something else back. So we've got that quite nice recursion. The other thing that I like in this deck is we're running 4 Replicating Terror, which is an alchemy card. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. For each creature sacrificed this way, you conjure a duplicate of it into our graveyard, and because we've got a way of bringing them back with Gearhulk and Alesha, we can sometimes hit them with their own creatures, which is just fun. I have put one of the disadvantages up there. Sack removal can be a bit weak versus go wide, because we've got this and we've got 3 Bitter Triumphs for our removal, plus these. So we do have quite a bit of removal, but if they've got real go wide, we struggle to target some of their bigger creatures with this, so just something to note. I am then running 2 Fear of Missing Out, just because it gives us a way to discard creatures that we don't need. So if we don't need the Lootmongers or the Skullspeakers or the Gas Guzzlers, we can discard them to draw something else. It can give us an extra attack with our Gilded Ambusher, which can be absolutely broken, or with our Alesha to put more counters on it, or with our Polterheist to heist more cards. So it's a bit of fun for the deck. I don't know if it's the best thing, but it seems to perform quite well. The fact it's a 2/3 for 2 as well is quite nice. The other thing is, because the Delirium, the thing that gives us an extra attack, it triggers if we've got 4 different card types in our graveyard. The Coalstoke Gearhulk is actually an artifact. We have this as enchantment removal, we have instant speed removal, then we have creatures. This is also an enchantment, this is an enchantment. So we've got quite a few enchantments and creatures to discard. The problem is we need to have played one of our instants to trigger this. I did also have a sorcery in here before, but hard to find good sorceries. Maybe I can have a dig around, or if anyone's got a suggestion, let me know. So as I put in the sort of summary above, I think this deck is amazing fun. I've had so much fun just recurring the Gilded Ambusher or recurring Alesha and bringing other stuff back. The Skullspeakers to keep us in cards, and then, you know, a sort of heisty bit going in there as well. I don't like making heist the main theme of a deck, but it is a bit of a sub theme in here with the Polterheist and the Lootmonger. It is strong versus removal heavy stuff because we keep bringing our things back unless they exile them all the time, and we get to use this new Gearhulk. I was desperate to find a deck that makes this work, and this is the deck so far that I've found has been working. Exile is good because obviously against us, because if we can't bring our stuff back, it takes away a lot of our advantage, and as I said before, using Replicating Terror, whilst it's fun, can in some situations be weak. In some situations it could be strong, because if they're running this, can't remember the name now, the stupid white enchantment that exiles thing and gives them ward 2, sheltered by ghosts, then, you know, having something that forces them to sack it is actually a nicer removal than even like Bitter Triumph. The reason I'm running Bitter Triumph is that we can discard creatures sometimes if we want to, or we can pay 3 life, as will tend to be the beatdown anyway, but discarding creatures is not always bad in this deck, so Bitter Triumph has a slight upside there as well. As per the last deck I ran on this channel, we are running the Abattoir, which means we have the ability to give haste to creatures in our hand, which is nice with all 3 of our 3 drops, and Fear of Missing Out as well to an extent. So yeah, it's there for a bit of removal and also ability to give haste. It's just nice for these guys. Anyway, I'll do what I did last time, just run through some kind of like interesting interactions as I play rather than full games this time. Have a watch, let me know what you think. Well, it's not something you see in many decks. They have this in their opening hand. Leyline of the Void could make this deck slightly less effective than I would otherwise like, but let's see how we get on. We may not be able to bring stuff back from our own graveyard, but how about their Bloodletter? How did we win against this? Our whole deck is about the graveyard. I mean, that was a trash deck, no offense Iliad, but just shows the strength of this deck, to be honest. Nice little instance here where we've managed to cast Alesha after having forced them to sack an Emporium Thopterist with Replicating Terror. So we get the Thopterist back to the battlefield, which I'm guessing they're going to, exile. So, you know, we've forced the removal out of them for, you know, basically something that we got for free. Same game, next turn. Going to be able to play the Abattoir and then pop it, kill the Siren, which will be able to then give the Polterheist haste, which is nice, as well as then attacking, doing some damage. Nothing in the graveyard at the moment, unfortunately, worth bringing back. That will get rid of Alesha. And this is the classic exiling enchantments deck, so obviously something that is quite hard for us, traditionally. But if we run the heist in now, attack with both, they'll obviously block the heist. If they don't, I'll be very, very surprised. We'll take the oh no, wait, we need an artifact to enchant. And then we'll start getting the Skullspeakers ticking up. Nice, we've got our Gearhulk now, which can bring back. One more thing is that the Abattoir does perpetual boost to the Polterheist, so if we bring that back, it is still going to be a 5-1. Now obviously opponents managed to deploy a lot here, but that's fine, we'll let that attack go through. So Whack, in comes Gearhulk. We look in our own graveyard. We pick the Heist. That they're going to have to block with both. It gets Menace and Death Touch, which is a bit brutal. Then we Heist potentially a Snare. Because if they don't block this, then they'll die. So they lose both Memory Guardians to something that was going to get exiled anyway. Bit brutal. And then we still got a 5/4 Death Touch Menace, so a very nasty little combo there. You can turn that into an Alesha. I don't think that's going to help you. An extra blocker, I suppose. Okay, well, we've got a Snare here, so we're not too worried. I think we already win. Well, and a bit of triumph. Seal the deal. Let's put this in there. GG. Run through that one. Even though they managed to exile countless of our stuff, you know, the value that we can pump out here is crazy. So this is where we can start to have a bit of fun with one of these like black discard decks, because our fear of missing out means we've got an enchantment, creature and land in the graveyard already, and because we've got the Gearhulk forcing us to discard stuff, it's just giving us stuff that we can reanimate. Now they could potentially remove this from our hand with the bat, and the Hopeless Nightmare is quite nice with the Ambusher, although it doesn't get put into the graveyard. It does get exiled with Ambusher, but it is only 1 mana value and it's something they don't mind losing anyway. Okay, they have taken the Gearhulk, interestingly. Get him for 2. Then I think I mean, Alesha could bring back the fear of missing out, but then we have to discard something, which at the moment I don't really want to do. So we'll go Ambusher, because we don't mind sacking something. Okay, gain a life, interesting. Okay, this is where it's an easy choice. So we discard the Lootmonger, knowing we can get it back with Alesha, because even if we don't attack with her, she can bring something with mana value 2 back. And get rid of that one. So we will, I think I will sack the fear of missing out. Do we? Yeah, I don't have a way to getting its delirium up yet, so we can get rid of some of these nightmares without them gaining any advantage, and it does add to our damage obviously, because it's going to be 1, so they go 5 more rather than 2. Bang, and we can always get the fear of missing out back if we want it. But at this stage I think we're better off with a Lootmonger. I think the end, because then we can get rid of this bat and all other bats, and then we'll be able to keep our Gearhulk, or they'll force us to discard it, but either way, get rid of this annoying blocker. Easy. Easy. Don't even have to think about it. Okay, this is another interesting one, because I actually was about to record and say, look, this is where we can end up kind of losing, but because we had Chittering Skullspeakers in the graveyard, one we discarded to a fear of missing out, which got exiled. We then got one of these exiled. It's kind of a like, look at the cards we've got compared to the opponent. Now I don't think I'm going to lose anymore, because they have run out of removal for our Alesha, clearly. If they had a Dollmaker to copy one of these, which they could then copy with the World Walker, whatever it's called, then we might be in trouble. But obviously, if everything works out for any deck, then it does well. So next turn we can start playing our Gearhulk. It means we don't mind discarding this Ambusher. So for me, the right move is to do this. Then we get another copy of Fear of Missing Out into our graveyard. We can then Lootmonger. We can put this in there. In fact, we can even bring that back this turn. Let's take one of these Simulacrums, not because we want it, but it takes it out of their deck. One of the key kind of things about Heist is whatever we know we can't beat, we can just start stripping out of their deck, because that's the best thing to do. I mean, we could obviously take something cheaper, sack it to the Ambusher, but one of these could swing this game. They start pumping out 7/7s, 8/8s, whatever it'll be, 8/8. Got this thing already, 10/4, but not too worried. We got removal, got our Gearhulk. So let's pay 3 life. Then they're going to have to sack one of these things. We even get a nice scry look. We can sack this treasure. Dead. So much power in this deck, man. It's hard to find a losing game. Okay, look, quick look at statistics. Played 10 games in total, across a couple of different versions. Didn't have the Abattoirs in originally, just had more of the Guzzlers and fear of missing out, but I think the Abattoir, a bit of extra removal is nice. There's a lot of small creature decks around at the moment, so the fact that this is a bit of small creature removal and then with another use, I kind of really like it. Yeah, 70% win rate, as you can see. Quite a bit against mono black, interestingly, because this making us discard is not helping. I think like the losses that we've had have been things like getting quite unlucky with our draws, being on the draw and then not hitting our 2-drops that we need. So in general, I think this thing is very well placed against lots of stuff in the matchup. Obviously we're in Platinum at the moment, it's the 2nd of March, so right at the start of a new ladder. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with this. I think I'm going to use it to grind up a bit this season, because it's just so much fun. I love having decks where I keep bringing back my things. Things like Porcine Portent are a lot less used now, thankfully, so you don't get your creatures exiled quite so much, apart from against the artifact decks. And if that becomes too much of a problem, I might start swapping out some of the removal, like the Bitter Triumphs, or potentially even the Abattoirs for an Abrade, but for now I don't think it's quite worth it, but we've always got that as an option. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I do appreciate it, and I promise I'll try to be a bit quicker getting the next one out to you. I've already got an idea ready. See you later. Bye for now.